Most people spend their entire lives performing, but never discover who they are. And that's why no amount of success, money, validation, relationships, or achievements ever seem to satisfy them. Because performance can change what people see, but identity changes who you become. One of the greatest deceptions I have ever seen is not addiction. It is not failure. It is not even sin. It is performance. Performance says, if I do enough, I will finally be enough. Identity says, because I know who I am, I can faithfully do what I was created to do. Those are two completely different ways to live. For years, I lived through performance. I thought if I made enough money, if I built enough businesses, if I worked harder, if people respected me, if people listened to me, then somehow I would finally feel valuable. But every time I reached another goal, another mountain appeared. Every time I accomplished something, I needed another accomplishment. Because performance is a treadmill. You keep running, but you never arrive. I have met men who built businesses, men who owned homes, men who drove nice cars, men who had influence, yet they were still empty. Why? Because performance can make you look successful while identity is still broken. You can have achievement without alignment. You can have influence without peace. You can have money without purpose. You can have followers without knowing who you are. The world teaches, do more, work harder, hustle longer, and become somebody. But the kingdom teaches something different. Before God ever gave Adam an assignment, God first gave Adam an identity. Before Adam worked, before Adam produced, before Adam performed, he was already a son, created in God's image. Identity came before assignment. Identity came before performance. Identity came before productivity. And this is where so many people get trapped. They spend years trying to prove something, trying to prove they matter, trying to prove they belong, trying to prove they are worthy, trying to prove they are enough. But when you know who you are, you stop performing for acceptance. You start living from acceptance. Performance asks, what do I need to do so people will value me? Identity asks, what has God already said about me? Performance says, I failed, therefore I am a failure. Identity says, I may have failed, but failure is not who I am. Performance says, I lost the business. Identity says, I lost the business, but I did not lose my purpose. Performance says, I got rejected. Identity says, my value was never determined by their opinion. I spent years in prison, years in addiction, years lost. And if my identity had been based on my performance, then I would have remained a prisoner long after the prison walls disappeared. But God showed me something powerful. My past explained me, but it did not define me. My mistakes revealed where I had been, but they did not determine where I was going. My performance was a chapter. It was never my identity. This is why so many people stay stuck, because they are trying to change behavior without changing identity. Behavior follows belief. Belief follows identity. When identity changes, everything else begins to change. A man who believes he is worthless will act worthless. A man who believes he is broken will live broken. A man who believes he is rejected will continue choosing rejection. But a man who discovers his identity begins to walk differently, speak differently, lead differently, build differently, love differently. Because identity always produces behavior. At Kingdomship Institute, we do not start with performance. We start with identity. Because when identity is clear, beliefs become aligned, behavior begins to change, structure begins to form, purpose becomes visible, and impact becomes inevitable. The question is not, what have you accomplished? The deeper question is, who are you becoming? Because one day the business may disappear, the money may disappear, the title may disappear, the applause may disappear. But if your identity is built on truth, you will still stand. Maybe the reason you're exhausted is because you've spent years performing, trying to earn what God already wanted to give you, trying to prove what God already declared, trying to become what God already created. Stop asking, what do I need to do to become somebody? Start asking, who does God say I am? Because identity is not built from performance. Identity is built from truth. And when truth becomes your foundation, performance stops being your master and starts becoming your servant. Know your identity. Walk in your assignment. Build your legacy.